And Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Good day, Chicago. I'm John Anthony, host of Black and White Radio, heard every Saturdays from 4 to 7 p.m. I hope you've tuned in. Download the podcast at 560theanswer.com. Click on Black and White. Joined by my good friend, my buddy, my pal, Charles Thomas, former ABC 7 reporter. Brother, thanks so much for joining me today.
Good morning.
Those first 2 hours blew by, didn't it? Charles, those first 2 hours just, they blew by quickly.
They zipped by, man. It's just you and me pretty much just talking about all that's going on in the country and in the world. Yeah,
I'm sorry. I know a lot of people are upset that Dan and Amy aren't here. I do believe they'll be back here tomorrow. I'm a listener. I listen to the Morning Answer. I listen to the Sean Thompson Show. Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I listen because I learned so much from Dan and Amy and Sean Thompson as I'm listening, especially the Morning Answer. Man, Dan is the premier radio guy as it relates to analysis of the issues of the day. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, if you want a digest on common sense, tune in to the Morning Answer because you'll get it.
Yeah. And speaking of Chicago, as I stated before the break, they are embracing for a caravan of people, 25,000 people, on top of what Chicago has, how they've been inundated by immigrants in the past, year, 2, 3 years now. Joining us to discuss this and more is Alderman Ray Lopez. He's the 15th Ward Alderman, friend of the Chicago Morning Answer Show. Alderman, welcome to Chicago's Morning Answer with John and Charles.
John and Charles, good morning to you and all your listeners this happy Wednesday.
Good morning, Alderman.
Alderman, 25,000 new people crossing over, and I'm sure most of them will probably be shipped out from Texas and many other states. Is Chicago prepped for that, knowing that the Democrat National Convention is coming up?
Well, Chicago has been preparing for at least 1,000 new arrivals a week as we get ready for the Democratic National Convention. We know that it seems to be a lull in the amount of individuals that have been arriving, but none of us truly believe that Governor Abbott is done. He declared as much during the Republican National Convention that the buses are going to start rolling again. And we also know that the migrants crossing over into our country has not stopped. Recently, we learned that the Biden administration has been asking other Central and South American countries to turn back anyone heading this way at whatever point they find them. But we know that thanks to our border czar, who never went to the border, nearly 9 million people have come into this country over the last 3.5 years.
Jeez.
They're all floating down in Texas, California, Arizona, or making their own march towards Chicago and other cities where they know the benefits are ripe and the political will is not to put an end to this.
Right.
Alderman, we have the election coming up in November. And there's a great fear that many of these people will try to vote. Is there anything that's being done to prevent that?
Well, we have seen in cities like New York, Charles, where they're trying to extend voting rights to non-citizens. And let me just go on record and say, I believe, voting is a right of the American citizen, period. You need to be a citizen in order to participate in our democratic process. What concerns me is that in states like Illinois and others where we have these motor voter laws where they sign you up when you get a state ID or a driver's license to vote, I have seen personally in my own ward where individuals who are not citizens have been registered to vote.
Wow.
Thankfully, they have never voted because they know that they risk their future immigration status if they were to participate. But that was on individuals who wanted to be a part of this country. I don't know if I would put the same faith in individuals who have manipulated the asylum process from not engaging. But I think there has to be stricter controls, and I think there has to be a renewed debate on whether or not, if identification is free across all 50 states, why we cannot ask for identification or some other type of verification on Election Day.
I agree. And Alderman, are you a delegate to the DNC convention?
I am not a delegate.
Okay. Now, here's my
Sense Caucus was not invited.
Well, you speak too much truth for them. Now you've spoken out a lot about immigration in the last couple of years. Now, as you know, Kamala Harris is the so-called appointed one. How does she square the complete and utter failure of the Biden administration, which she led as it relates to immigration? How does she square that with trying now to get people to vote for her based upon a colossal failure?
Well, I think that's going to be the interesting part, John, to be perfectly honest, on multiple fronts. First and foremost, she's not going to talk about the border because the failure is her own. Whether she wants to recognize it or not, I believe it was in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, that President Joe Biden appointed her the border czar.
Mm-hmm.
She came to Chicago on numerous occasions that I can recall where I invited her to come see what the border camps look like in Chicago, and she never once stood at any one of them,
Wow.
let alone went to the actual border itself.
Well, she said they've been there. She said, we've been there, but, oh, yeah, we're going to be at the border.
But, going to Taco Bell is not visiting the border.
Wow.
Let's get that clear.
Yeah.
Taco Bell is not the border.
Yeah.
You
Now,
can't say that.
yeah. Now,
But what I think is going to be very interesting, and let me just
Go ahead.
end on this, is that she has to square off that failure with two necessary demographics of the Democratic Party's voting base. The impact that immigration has played out not in the Latino community, particularly those who were of immigrant status that have been waiting for a path that they completely got leapfrogged over by individuals bypassing using asylum, and then by the African American community who has had to deal with the pressure strains and the resource drain given to these individuals, like we've seen in Illinois, where nearly $2 billion has miraculously appeared to help 150,000 individuals, but yet that kind of money has never been put into the disinvested communities on the south and west side of the city of Chicago.
yeah.
How do you answer that as you ask for their vote, saying that, I'm not really the one responsible for any of this?
Ooh, that's going to be tough for her to do. Now, as it relates to the DNC convention, there are a couple of groups, the U.S. Palestinian Community Network, Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. They want to march on the DNC convention. They want to get close to the United Center. I mean, when you look at I don't think we've talked since the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. When you look at that, shouldn't they not be allowed? There should be a buffer zone, in my opinion, of miles from getting to any of the people that are showing up for the Democrat National Convention. What's the latest on that? Have they been given a specified route where they can go and protest?
Well, the unfortunate thing is that, yes, the Secret Service and the Chicago Police Department have created a footprint that allows for permitted public demonstrations for groups like that, and anybody else for that matter, who wishes to protest peacefully at the Democratic National Convention. The problem that we're going to have is that you have aldermen like socialist Byron Cicho Lopez and his crony, Mayor Brennan Johnson, who don't necessarily believe in permits, like watching the old Cheech and Chong skit. We don't need no stinking papers. They are encouraging people to come in.
Wait. A Cheech and Chong. I love it. Go ahead.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember
We
that.
don't need no stinking papers. And that's what we're going to get with these protests, because they encourage the right of protest. You have a mayor whose whole tenure was born out of protest. I'm sure he had no permits to march down LaSalle. I'm sure they've never had a permit with the CTU. And he's going to see no issue or need to arrest anyone who violates that footprint order.
Alderman, what about cops?
Also see organizations like BLM, who are just this morning or just yesterday announcing that they are not in support of this. So what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Alderman, what are we going to do about police during the convention? Will we have enough, or will we have to import them from other jurisdictions?
So my understanding is that we are going to get an infusion of law enforcement officers so that Chicago police can focus on Chicago issues, and then whether they are state, county, or other individuals, they'll be able to focus on securing the convention site and things of that nature. But what really worries me is that no matter how many police that we say that we're not taking off the streets, we are already entering this convention at a deficit in our neighborhood.
Wow.
Right.
We still have 911 calls that are taking an hour to respond to, if at all, because oftentimes, unless there's a body on the ground, the police aren't coming. And that's only going to get exacerbated as we have 12,000 people of Democratic Party importance flooding the United Center, having to be protected. Individuals, gangs, drug dealers, everybody's going to know that the streets are going to be not as well defended. And I'm sure going to take full advantage, because we see that even now without a convention taking place.
Yeah, you look at why did they pick Chicago? What benefit does the DNC gain from picking a city like Chicago, which is pretty much in their column already, the state of Illinois?
That's a very good question, and I often think that they're trying to project strength by going to a stronghold, but I think that is a very short-sighted approach.
It exposes
I would have said this. Yes, and I would have said this had they picked L.A. or New York. And as much as I love having people come to Chicago, stay in our hotels, go to our restaurants, we are limping along right now in this city with our inability to keep people safe, to keep tourists safe, to create with some of our policies to keep criminals off the streets. I don't think that that's what we need to highlight right now. And we can't just do the Gavin Newsom sweep everybody off the expressway and put them in a warehouse somewhere, hope that no one recognizes all of the issues that we've had up to this point. But I think it's going to expose the short-sightedness of the Democratic Party not to be inclusive, not to look for those Indiana Democrats, those Pennsylvania Democrats, those Ohio Democrats from swing states that we need to win.
Correct.
Those downtown streets, though, going west toward the United Center are being cleaned. In fact, they took up many homeless people off of Lake Street several months ago, and then now they put up a wrought iron fence at Des Plaines and Taylor, where there was a very large homeless camp. They've cleared the camp, put up a wrought iron fence along the expressway to keep homeless people away. I mean, are you guys being kept, as aldermen, being kept abreast of all this that's going on in terms of cleaning homeless people off the street, at least for the duration of the convention?
Charles, I will say, for as long as you've covered Chicago politics and City Hall, it seems as more progressive our leadership becomes, the more secretive our leadership becomes.
Mm-hmm.
We probably had a better idea of what was going on in government when Mayor Daley was around than you do with Mayor Johnson being around, because I can tell you 95% of city council finds out about things once it's been reported or shown on Twitter.
Yeah.
We are not included because the mayor does not feel that even the quarterly reporting of funding and expenditures on migrant issues as required by law is something he needs to follow.
I had a comment made to me in the past few days where I was told by an opponent of the Democratic Party that the national Democrats would love to run the national government the way Chicago and Cook County Democrats run this region.
Wow.
Think
That
about
speaks
it.
volumes.
The national Democrats usually they hold these people in higher esteem, the Cook County and Chicago Democrats.
Isn't Obama doing that now, though?
Yeah, I mean, it's what's going on right now with this business with Biden bowing out of the race.
Yeah.
It's happening the same way it would happen if it was in Cook County and Chicago.
And think about it, even Congress has been running that way for nearly 20 years now. When's the last time you've seen any congressional committee have a spending or appropriations bill, dealt with their department, specifically for that department?
Under Bush.
We've been omnibus continuing resolutions for 20 years. No one reads these 20,000-page budgets.
Well, it's not even a budget. It's continuing resolution.
Right. It's just add 20% and keep it going.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And we're taking on debt. We're not asking questions. You're not allowed to have members have original thought once it comes out of leadership. And now we've just shown the country that you don't even need to resign in person.
Well,
you could do it with a a computer-generated signed letter.
You know,
you can have a party of elites pick your nominee.
We got about a minute and a half left. I was going to ask you about the Glock lawsuit, but you know, how's it playing out? What are you hearing about how this process played out with Joe Biden stepping down and Kamala basically being installed?
Well, the process isn't over, but definitely it seems like the fix was in.
Yeah.
But let me just say something about the Glock. We have a number of outstanding lawsuits that our mayor said he was going to sue. Remember Hyundai and Kia?
Yeah.
Which I posted on Twitter, and all these other attention headline-grabbing things. At some point, we have to start working beyond the headline. And I don't know if our mayor has it in him to do that, because I've seen a lot of things proposed, and nothing ever materialized.
Ooh, I love that, working beyond the headlines. He could take that and run with that and shift and change Chicago if he wanted to. He's 15 Ward Alderman Ray Lopez. Thank you so much for joining us on the Chicago Morning Answer today. Really appreciate your time.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Alderman.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Call your foursome to tee up for prizes and great fun. It's the 27th Annual Cruise Chicago Leader Impact Golf Outing. Join